Hi everyone, I'm Candace. I hope you're having a sunny day. Have you ever heard of a rose turned into a pumpkin, turned into a letter that's turned into an eye? Well, that's what I'm going to do today when I make my Halloween card. I'm going to use Simon Says Stamp's Single Roses to help me make a boo card where the rose die makes a pumpkin that is turned into the letter O that is also turned into an eye. It's a cute, simple card that's not too scary and fast to make. Let me show you how to do it. I'm starting with my card base that's 8.5 by 5.5 and scored at 4.25. This is going to be a landscape card. I've already stamped the sentiment inside. I often do that first. It's easy to grab another card base and start over rather than try to fix a mistake on an already completed card. The next thing I need is my top panel. That's 5 by 3.75 inches. My back panel, the framing panel, is 5.25 by 4 inches. Now I need to make the word boo. The B was cut with my scan and cut machine, and it's 1.5 inches high. The pumpkin, or O, was cut with the smaller of the two die roses. I have to cut out another pumpkin and leaf, so I have my Big Shot and some orange cardstock from my stash. I have my small leaf die from the Single Roses set and some green cardstock also from my stash. I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. I like to go back and forth 3 times or so. I find that works best for my Big Shots. Yours may be calibrated differently, and you may need to do it greater or fewer times than I. I'm going to poke out the pumpkin and the leaf. I like to keep a little garbage container on my work area, as well as a holding container for all the valuables. Card makers are notorious for losing things on their desks. This helps me keep from losing mine. Well, not as often anyway. I'm placing the letters on my panel because I need to know where to stamp my spider. I'm using my T ruler so I can center the spider's silk line. Do you know why we call a spider's web, especially those old and dusty ones, cobwebs? It's because cob is the Old English word for spider. Now I need to glue the letters down. I'm using one of my favorite glues, my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. Not only can I put down small dots of glue with it, but it dries clear too. When I place the pumpkin O on the panel, I'm careful not to press firmly because I have to slip the stem of the leaf under the top of the pumpkin. This is such a quick card to make. If you switch out the rose die with a pumpkin die, this would become an easy card that children could make. If you're a primary teacher, this card would be a good activity for one of your teaching centers. I'm going to give this card to someone young. I like to make dark and spooky Halloween cards, but this one isn't so scary. The top panel is light colored, as is the card base. I think this is a good card to give to young children. How fast was that? In real time, this card took me less than 15 minutes from start to finish. But what if you have more time and you want to spook this up a bit? Well, let me show you how to do that. I'm using the same card measurements as before. This cardstock is Bristol Smooth Surface. I buy this at both Joann's and Michael's, and this is the best, the very best affordable surface for blending inks, especially if you have a 50% off coupon. I'm using Distress Oxides. They have a rich and creamy feel to them and blend so nicely. The first one I'm using is Peeled Paint. Whenever I'm blending inks, I usually end up with inky fingers. Even now, my fingers are a little inky and have glue on them too. So I'm using this small white scrap of cardstock to place my fingers on to prevent them from spreading ink onto other parts of my card. I'm starting to use broken china, but I almost forgot that I want to place a mask, a moon mask, on the fossilized amber part so that when I'm finished, I'll have a yellow moon. So I'm putting a little more of the fossilized amber and then I will place on the mask. To place the mask, I'm using some removable tape. That will hold it in place until I'm finished with the blending. My next Distress Oxide is worn lipstick. When you try making this card and don't have Bristol paper, don't worry if it looks messy. This will get covered up in the following step. Now I'm covering all this up with black soot distress ink. The colors are certainly going to be harder to see, but you'll still be aware that there is color in the dark sky. It starts out looking like a hot mess, but don't worry, it'll all come together. I'm trying to leave a little of the fossilized amber showing around the moon so that it appears to be glowing. Let me take off the mask. It has a little glue on it, but it'll come right off with my glue eraser. Let me clean up the ink and I'll move on. This looks good just as it is, and if time is an issue, go ahead and put on the boo. But I want to add some stars, so I have some gouache on my acrylic base that I'm reactivating with water. I'm flicking the gouache off the base and also flicking the paintbrush itself. I've got a little gouache on the moon, so I'll just dab it off. I'm setting it aside to dry, but I could use a heat gun if I want to. I have another panel ready to go. I have a white moon on this one, but that's fine too. I'm stamping my spider. This time I have a good idea as to where it should go, so I didn't place the boo on the panel first. I have my T-ruler again to make sure the string is straight. Now it's time to place the boo on the panel. I'm really a fan of the Single Roses die set. I already made a video once using it. If you look back on my videos, you'll find it. I actually used it as flowers then. But the stylized rose can also be used as a funky looking moon, especially on a Halloween card. Emboss it with gold or yellow embossing powder. It'll look great. Remember to gently put the pumpkins on the card so you can place the stems of the leaves under them. Then press them down firmly. I want the brightness of the boo to be reflected in the background, so I'm using the same orange cardstock as the framing panel. To help the brightness stand out, I'm using gray cardstock for the base. I open it up to make sure it's facing in the right direction, and I adhere the panels to the base. Let me go back to the first card. If you have a very young child, one you'd be worried about swallowing small objects, then this is the place to stop. But if the child is older, add some googly eyes for some fun added interest. I bought a package of various sized eyes at my local craft store. Let me do it again on this card. Remember that you'll have to add extra postage because it needs to be hand stamped. This extra step will be appreciated by anyone you're handing the card to, along with some Halloween candy, of course. So there we have it, two boo cards, one simple and one more complex. Remember to leave the eyes off if you're giving the card to a very young child. Look for another video from me soon, and happy Halloween. Bye now.